Hey everyone, Andrew here, and it's time for another series review. This being still around the time of Valentine's, I'm going to do another romance series. I'm going to do something smidge different with this one. I'm going to try and just breeze through a little bit of the synopses of these, and not go into as much detail as I usually do, because I read the first one of these a while ago, and I just recently finished my fourth one of these like a month ago. So my memory on certain ones is going to be a little bit more vague than it is on others, and I just kind of want to talk, and because it's a romance book, they all kind of follow similar beats. She's not as bad as some other authors who literally do like cut and paste books where it's the same book every single time, but she has a little repetition in her. Just a little. But she's very, like, I super love this author. Every book that she's written is very strong, very compelling, really interesting. She has a good use of characters and multiple viewpoints. And she is very good at doing compelling reads. They're just a really fun, easy reads that don't have to rely on sex, but rely very well on telling a good, interesting story with good romance. So this series is the Coulter Family series by Katherine Anderson. It's a romance series set in Oregon, all focused around this one family. So the Coulter family has 6 kids, and each of them has their own romance book, plus there's other books that are included as part of the series that don't necessarily deal with the Coulter specifically, but are connected to them. And, like, she does a lot of series. I've read, there's 2 different, like, Coulter series. There's a Coulter Historian series, which is, like, 5 books, and there's this one, which is 6-ish books. And yeah, no, I'm gonna do this one for now, and I will probably do the Historian one at a later date, because I have thoughts on both. Oh, I am also going to state that of this book series, there are 6 books in it-ish. I've read 5. Part of me wanted to wait until I'd gotten through all 6, but it took me over a year to get to the 5th book in the series, and it may take longer to get to the 6th. Not that she's bad or that I don't want to read it, but just because of the book club and this and my own personal taste, it kept getting pushed up to the side. So, yeah. So the first book in the series that I will be talking about is called The Phantom Waltz. And, yeah, I'm just going to state right now, this one is the weakest of the whole. Honestly, it's the weakest of all of her books that I've ever read. And it's kind of sad, because it starts from a great point. So, we meet Bethany Coulter, who is the youngest of the Coulter family. So the Coulters are 6 siblings, each getting their own book. And she is the only girl, and she's the youngest of them. And she's working in a hardware store, and gets visited by this rich ranch owner named Ryan Kendrick, who's in there to order specialty parts. And he's flirting with her, and he's really nice and really likes her, and he invites her to go to a mudding event, which is basically barrel racing and rodeo. It's basically a rodeo with way more mud. And she's like, "Oh, that would be nice, but I can't go." And he's like, "Oh, why?" He's like, "You just don't want to go with me?" And she's like, "No." And she pushes her chair back to reveal that she is in a wheelchair. A few years ago, she got hurt in a barrel racing accident and left her paralyzed. And basically, doesn't believe that any man will want to be with her, especially any man who's a farm owner. Like, she can't do a lot of stuff, so she's kind of resigned herself to being alone. And Coulter is taken aback, but he immediately is like, alright, well, I think I can carry it. And, like, if you really want, like, I still would love to go with you, and I don't mind dealing with the chair and working. We can make this work if you want to try. And she agrees, and they go mudding, and she has a blast, and super a lot of fun. And he takes her home, and she's like, okay, this was fun, but we're probably never gonna do anything more of this. You're a ranch hand, you live off the land. You're not gonna want someone who can't go anywhere with you, who has to have streets and pavement and this. While she's thinking this and gone home, he's going around his land and going, okay, so if I hire contractors, I can build a path this way, and ooh, we can make a saddle for her to ride a horse through this method. And he does research, and it's like, so this is 50 pages in, and he's already planning a future with her. Okay, so romance books are made with two people meeting, having a connection of some sort, but there's conflict, something keeping them from being together. And there's a bunch of different things that go into this. So there's, like, in this case, there would be the wheelchair is the conflict. And usually you would also throw in maybe, like, an ex-lover, money, other people, just, there's a bunch of other stuff. Unfortunately, with this book, the wheelchair is really the only conflict. And 50 pages into it, he's already, he's here, he's ready, there's no conflict for him, he's ready to combine. It's only her who's like, nope, we're not doing this, we're not doing it, nope. It's like, okay, so now it's about convincing her and getting her on his side, and this will take some real work and some real effort, but showing her the new pavement that he did for her and all this stuff and the special saddle and the special harness so she can get onto a horse, all these things will make her fall in love with him. And why am I still only halfway through the book? Because they are this now. There's no conflict anymore. They're here. Where are we going? Okay, so they're going out for a horse ride? Alright, that's good. And there's a bear. Okay, and now they're getting attacked by the bear. And Ryan uses himself as a distraction to try to draw the bear away because she's on the ground, not on her horse, and could get in trouble. She manages to get onto the horse, gets back to the house, and gets people to come and rescue Ryan. And Ryan survives. Yay. But is very mauled and ends up being very scarred. Bethany can't deal with the guilt, because it's not the way she looked, it's the fact that because he was protecting her, because she couldn't do anything, because she couldn't do anything to stop it, it's all the guilt. She just feels super guilty, so she ends things with him and moves to Portland. Ryan goes back to the ranch and is working, and he's finding it really hard to do things because he's so damaged on part of his body. He's just stiff and has a hard time working around it. And he's just miserable. And his family's like, well, yeah, you're having a hard time of it. Imagine what she's had this entire time. Now you have to ask yourself, what do you want? And he knows he wants her, so he leaves and goes to Portland. And tells her he's willing to give up the farm, to give up everything, and live here in Portland with her. It's anything to be with her. And he stays the night and wakes up to a note where she's like, I've gone back home to the ranch. I'll be waiting for you to be back where you belong. which is sweet. It's kind of sweet. She couldn't just tell him this? They couldn't have left together? It had to be, oh, we're together. No, I'm leaving and going here. Well, I'm going with you. It's like, well, okay. Nope, I'm leaving. I'm going back. Well, as a, yeah, no, this book is, I have a feeling this is one that was really early in her career. Because it is very, I'm not going to say amateurish because it's there's a very solid, strong line of writing here. It's really well written. It's super easy to read. It's a lot of fun. But it's lacking tension, and it's not the most compelling. And again, it's because with romance, like there needs to be something that's keeping these people from being together. But once he accepted it, once he fully acknowledged that he was in love with it and he was willing to do anything to make that relationship work, then it just became about convincing her. And once she accepted that she loved him and was willing to try and make this work, the relationship was over. It was just watching a relationship. There was no story. It was just, we're together and we're going to go from there. And it threw me out of the book. Like, it was and there's one other book that Catherine Anderson wrote that did this, which was in her historical romance Coulter series. But that one saved that for the last 50 pages, where it's like, he liked her, but she couldn't stand him. And then when she finally accepted him, the book was over for me, and there was still 50 pages left. Here, the second that he accepted her, because the entire tension, the entire thing keeping them apart was the chair. The chair is not something she can deal with. She has to have it, so the conflict isn't on her end almost at all. It's almost entirely on his end. And less than 50 pages into the book, he's 100% okay with the chair. The chair doesn't bother him at all. So the conflict is gone. So then it's just a matter of convincing her that he really feels this way. And again, does that, but there's still 200 pages left of the book. And the bear attack thing, while dramatic, isn't tension-filled, because I don't think you're going to kill him. So it's just you dragging out the ending when I'm already kind of done with the story. Now, this sounds harsh, because it is a little bit. But I still think it's a really good book. I still think it's well told, well written. It's like, you understand both characters extremely well. She has Anderson has a very good use of language, a very good use of setting. You feel everything that's going on. Plus, to do a romance story starring someone in a wheelchair is unique and interesting, and she treats it with respect and does a very good job with it. This book needed another, force keeping them apart. The chair wasn't enough, and I can say with certainty that she learned from this book and doesn't repeat this, because there's no other book that has this problem this bad. Like I said, there was that one historical romance, but that one is just, the last little bit of the pages. And she does do a good job of throwing in, hey, there's this thing that could happen, and it could actually be danger. A person could die. Whereas this one, it's like the bear attack. I'm like, I'm really doubting you're going to kill him. Not when there's still a couple hundred pages left. So it's good, but it's a little flawed. We go on to the second book of the series, which is called The Sweet Nothings. This one deals with Jake Coulter. Jake Coulter is the oldest of the Coulter children, and he has recently bought a ranch land that used to belong to his father. So his father lost his ranch paying for Bethany's surgeries after the accident that put her in the wheelchair. And Jake managed to buy a portion of it back, and he's running the ranch with his younger brother Hank. And they are getting a reputation around town as being real-life horse whisperers, because they know how they treat horses and teach them in a way that makes them not only more compliant, but healthier and more responsive and able to do a lot more. One of the mornings he comes out and he's met by this woman named Molly Wells, who shows up with a truck and trailer with a beautiful black stallion in it, who has been horribly abused by her, and she doesn't say why, but you find out it's by her ex-husband, who had also horribly abused her, and Molly just desperately wants to make this horse better, to give it the loving care and treatment that it deserves to be saved and rescued. Jake feels for her plight, but he can't just take on a horse because there's a lot of stuff going on, and she has no money, no proof of ownership, or it's a business. You can't just take on a horse, especially one who is clearly has problems with humans, and do that with nothing. And she's like, and basically she begs, and she asks really nicely, and he's like, okay, I will work with you and the horse, and I will do it for no charge, but we are in need of a ranch hand. We're in need of someone to take care of the house and provide, and cook meals for the staff. It's like, you provide meals with us, do some cleaning. We will give you this house on the outer edge of the ranch, right next to the paddocks. You will get, and we will and I will teach you. I will help you with the horse. So basically, we find she ends up agreeing to helping out with the house and doing all this stuff, and we get to these. She basically lied about her experience because she doesn't know about any of that, but she ends up having to make the food for all of the staff, all the farm hands, doing all that, which is interesting because you get this really good comedic part of it where it's like she's very city and they're very country, and there's a dramatic difference between a country diet and a city diet. So she's trying to be super healthy and super organic and whole, and doing all this stuff. And it's like, and you should only be eating this much per ounce. And they're farm people who are working 16 hours a day and burning thousands upon thousands of calories. And they're like, we need biscuits and gravy. We need actual food. We're starving. And they're having to sneak in food because she won't let them eat. It's kind of funny. It's kind of sad. It's that thing of, if he didn't feel emotions for her, he probably would have fired her within the first few days, because she did not know what she was doing. But he, helps her out, and it's like, we find out that she had been abused by her husband, and by working with the horse and working on that, we end up helping her, and it's a loving story about someone with a vague, open heart, taking in someone who's been abused and treated badly, and showing her that she deserves to be loved and that she deserves to be treated well. And then also helping out the human owner who brought her in. No, it's a beautiful love story. But if you've read romance, you've come across a book that's sort of like this, where it's just, girl from abusive ex-relationship finds herself with new man. Can he heal her wounds? Type of thing. But this is really well told. You get a really good, strong lead out of Jake, but also, Molly's a really good, well-written character. It's like the fact that she is a broken person, but she doesn't even care about fixing herself. It's all about helping this poor animal. Is really nice. Plus, I love reading Catherine Anderson talk about horses and how the treatment of horses and how, different techniques and different things that can be used. So it's really well written, very good. It was definitely better than Phantom Waltz. So, the third book in the Coulter series is Blue Skies. And this one is very, very good. It's also really, really complicated. So, we have Hank Coulter, who was the other person who ran the ranch, along with his brother from the last book, and the ranch is now successful. They're making some money, and Hank is in his late 20s, early 30s, and he's finally at a point in his life where he can actually go out and be a little rebellious, a little. He gets to go and sow his wild oats a little bit, but he goes out to this honky tonk bar every weekend, and it's one of the low down places where the girls are just there to meet up with someone casually, type of thing. No strings attached. It's one of those bars that has that reputation. And he always uses protection. He always takes careful of it. He goes there one night, gets a little too drunk. He meets this beautiful girl named Carly Adams, and he takes her and dances with her, and she's like, "I've never danced before." And he's like, "I'm having a hard time believing that because you're 26 and you're here in a bar that has this reputation." But, no. And he thought she was playing him. So they're dancing together, and he convinces her to drink, and they take shots and have a little too much to drink. And he's like, he's really smitten with her and really wants to go all the way with her, and convinces her to go to a hotel with him. But as they're walking towards the truck, he realizes he's far too drunk to drive them there, but he still wants her, so he decides he'll have her in the back seat of his truck, and and she reveals that she was a virgin, and he hits his head and passes out. Wakes up, she's gone, and he also realizes he didn't wear protection. So what usually happens in a story where someone is a virgin and they had sex for the first time with a stranger and weren't wearing protection, she of course gets pregnant. But with Carly Adams, there's a lot more going on than just that. So Carly Adams was born with a rare eye disease, which made her blind. And she had just recently, within like the last 6 months, gotten eye surgery, so he was able to see for the first time in years. And she had given up her disability status, moved to this new small town with a college, so she could get her master's in teaching and start teaching. Moved in with an old friend of hers, who is the one who encouraged her to go out to the bar. So, like, she's now pregnant, but being pregnant is bad enough, but because of her disease and the new treatment, it rapidly affects her eyes. So the eyes that should have lasted her for a good couple years will probably fail her before she gives birth. And she's like, "I'm keeping the baby. I'm doing this." It's like, if I lose my eyesight, then that happens. But I'm doing everything. I'm gonna do this all on my own. It's fine. And the friend convinces Carly, it's like, you need to tell him. He needs to at least know that he's a father. And so she's like, all right. So she calls him, tells him who she is, just says her name, and he's like, "And you are? And who is this?" Because he was so drunk, he thought she said her name was Charlie, not Carly. And she hangs up in rage and disgust, and like, "I'm never speaking to him again. He never seen this kid. This kid is mine." And Hank figures out, and he's like, "Oh no." And it's like, keeps calling back, and she's refusing to pick up. So finally the roommate eventually picks up and tells him the situation of, yeah, she's pregnant with your kid, she's going blind, and you need to take responsibility for this. And Hank is a good, like, despite how he comes off in the beginning of this book, Hank is a very good guy. So the second that she's pregnant, he's like, I have to take, he's like, he knew, he'd already made the plan, like, if I ever did get someone knocked up, I would, take everything in my power to take care of them and do well. Now, while the ranch is doing well, they're not exactly rolling in the Benjamins, and so covering expensive eye surgery, which I think took out, like, most of her savings to do the first time, is not something he can do on his own. He can, however, do it with his health insurance, but she has to be his spouse. So he comes up with a plan. It's like, okay, and works out this thing of, we'll get married. You'll get in 6 months, you will be under my insurance. Then we can start doing the surgeries and doing all the stuff to take care of the baby. So we need to get married right away. And then in 2-3 years down the line, when you have had this surgery and have your eyesight back and are doing better, we can go our separate ways if that's what you want. She, of course, is so enraged at him for not remembering who she was and all this stuff that she refuses to even listen to any part of this plan, and refuses to see him, refuses to do anything, and to the point where he has to flat out tell her, it's like, you're either going to agree to this plan, or I'm taking the baby. Because I'm not, and because he knows that's the only way she will even remotely listen to this. Because he doesn't want to take the baby. He doesn't want to take the child from its mother, but he knows he's desperate to help her, and this is literally the only thing he can do. So they get married in the courthouse, and he didn't want to invite his family, but he had to, and they were all, like, super into it, and, like, super behind, and brought Carly in with wide open arms, and there's a lot of bristling between the two of them. They don't, it's like, because she's just enraged at him for all the stuff that he said to her and done, but you also find out that she has very big trust issues, and it's because she's only had one previous boyfriend, and he did something horrendous. And I'm not going to say what it is, because that's honestly, like, that's a very late reveal in the book, and it was such a good part of that book that I'm not giving it away. But you see, like, Carly's vision does slowly start to deteriorate, and she has it's like she gets to the point where she can't even see more than a foot in front of her face. Or, yeah, so she's, like, and she ends up, like, at the house, and she's trying to find Hank, and she's like, I need to go get him because something's wrong, and she rushes out of the house, and they're out in a cabin, kind of in the middle of nowhere type of thing. Like, they're near the ranch, but it's a distance, and it would be hard enough to do while seeing, let alone while almost completely blind. And she ends up taking a tumble and falls in a pond and nearly drowns. And yeah, and it's like, it's a real wake-up call for Hank and having to realize everything that's on him and all this weight. It's like, I want to keep her safe, but how can I keep her safe? How can I do these things? I can't. How am I ever going to be able to stop this? I can't be with her 24 hours a day. I can't. And it's like, it's the first time where it's actually starts to really stress on him. And at this point, he is deeply in love with her. And honestly, like, no, this book is extremely strong. Like, because there are so many layers to this. Because you have the one night stand, too drunk to remember. You got all the stuff that's going on with Carly and her being blind and losing her sight again. You got Hank trying to be the responsible person that his father raised him to be, but also, having to be a little bit underhanded with this person who refuses to listen to him. And it's just, honestly, extremely well written. One of my favorite books of hers. Like, and this is the one I just read. I just read this, like, a month ago, and it's still, like, hits. It's still permeating. really interesting, really well told. I'd highly recommend this one. So, the fourth book in the series is called Bright Eyes, which is interesting because you'd think the one about the person going blind would be called Bright Eyes, but yeah. Unfortunately, this is the one of the series I haven't read. I'm planning to. It looks really interesting from the breakdown of it. Is basically that one of the brothers is just like, I'm never getting married. I have no intention of ever getting married. And he goes and buys this ranch, slightly out in the middle of nowhere, and he has this next door neighbor who is a divorced mother of two, and the kid, one of her children, like vandalizes his property, and it's just like, yeah, no, I can totally see her doing something super interesting with this because she is a very skilled writer, and I can totally see this building into something really interesting. So we go on to book number 5, which is the first of her Catherine Anderson book I ever read, the one I found in a bookstore and just went, this looks super interesting, this looks really well, this could be good. It's called My Sunshine. My Sunshine it follows the love story of Isaiah Coulter, who is a set of twins. It's Isaiah and his brother Tucker. And they both became veterinarians. Tucker deals with the larger farm animals. Isaiah deals with the domesticated, smaller animals, the cats, the dogs, all that. And they just opened up a new vet clinic in their new area, and he's trying to get a good staff going for it and get it well organized, and he gets recommended this young woman to come in and take care of the animals, and her name is Laura Townsend. And Laura Townsend was, she was a hotshot lawyer on her way up in the world, and then she got in a swimming accident and damaged her brain and ended up with aphasia, which means she has difficulty connecting thoughts and connecting people's names and faces, and it's a little forgetful on certain things. And this led to her losing her. Basically, she couldn't continue to do her job. She has a hard time communicating with people. She lost her fiance broke up with her. She lost all of her friends, and she's basically been living on disability in her grandmother's house with her pet animals. And she doesn't know if she really would be capable of doing the job because she can't do too much reading because it's too hard on her brain. And she's just unable to. And Isaiah meets her and is immediately smitten because she's very beautiful, very kind, and very warm-hearted. And he's like, okay, I can't give you like a receptionist work or anything, but we do need someone to take care of the kennels, to come in and, feed the animals, make certain they're they get time to play, they're all taken care of. And she ends up doing that job, and there are some difficulties in the beginning, but she's picks it up fairly well, and she and Isaiah are hitting it off really quickly. But Laura knows that she can't let this become anything more because her disability makes being around people too hard. There's no reason that a clinic owner should ever be with someone with this much trouble. And there's a whole thing going on with someone in the background who does not like Laura there and starts sabotaging things to try and make it look like it's her fault, that she's just stupid and that she's the one causing the damage to the animals and to get her fired. Isaiah doesn't believe any of this is on her side and is working hard to try and find out the real culprit. And him and Laura get closer and closer, and it's just this really beautiful, well-told story. And like, I'm someone who I don't find animals interesting at all. Like, there's a bunch of movies and a bunch of stories and a bunch of everything. It's like, oh yeah, here are these animals having these cute romantic moments. That never appeals to me. The way Anderson writes them, and the way she talks about the treatment of animals and the doing all that, just, oh, I love, every single little thing that, Laura thinks about when it comes to animals is like, oh, we should do this type of thing to help, them deal with some of the other. It's like, it's so well thought out and so well written. It's just beautifully told and just such a fun read. And she also does a very good job dealing with the mental disability, which, interesting, doing this review and realizing, every single one of the characters in this has, the love interest has a disability of a sort. It's like you have you have the physical disability, which is the one in the wheelchair. You have the visual disability, which is the one losing her eyesight. You have this one who has the mental disability. You have the abuse victim from the second one. And then you have the other two, which the next book one doesn't really have any of that disability. So I think that could be why that. But, and I have a hard time believing the other one has any kind of disability. But it's interesting to have that. And and she does a good job with it. She treats all of these disabilities with the utmost respect. She doesn't do anything super ridiculous with any of them or make a joke or anything. So it's really nice to show the actual real kind of people that do have these diseases, that do have these problems, and how they deserve love and how they can overcome them. But it's really well told and really interesting. And honestly, it's my favorite book of hers that I've read, and it's one of my favorite romance books that I've come across. It's such a well told story. The final one that I'm going to talk about is Sunkist, and that is dealing with Tucker, the Isaiah's brother who deals with the larger farm animals, and he meets this woman named Samantha Harrigan, who she runs a ranch that focuses on performing horses and racing horses, and one of her horses gets very sick and dies. And it turns out that he's been poisoned, and everyone is assuming that Samantha did it because she's the sole beneficiary of his insurance. And this horrifies Samantha because the last thing in the world she would ever do is harm one of her horses. She loves her horses. They are the most important thing in her life. And she convinces Tucker to help her, make certain that these horses are not in any danger, to help keep them safe, and they develop a connection and start to fall for each other. Honestly, this one is... So, first off, it's not a full story. It is a short story. I mean, it's still long, but it's dramatically shorter than the others. It's by almost 100 pages. It's really focused on taking care of the horses and dealing with that more so than is a little bit on the romance. So it's the romance in this one is a smidge weaker than most of the others. But they do try to add in that mystery of who's doing this, and it's not a great mystery, honestly. It's like you can kind of guess who's behind it fairly easily, but it does have an interesting elements to it. And it's a really good follow-up to My Sunshine to see, because Tucker's character in My Sunshine is very blunt and very not supportive, and to see how he changed from that into this one is interesting. And so I've seen some people refer to it as jarring, or as not even the same character. But I think seeing his brother meet someone and fall in love would that would open your mind to that too. Especially when you're one of the last ones in your family to get married, and there were 6 of you, and they were all like, "We're all gonna be bachelors forever, woo!" And then a couple of years later, 4 out of the 6 of you are married. You're like, "Oh, Okay, but honestly, it's a good follow up. It's strong. It's not the best. It's just a decent. It's a good book though. I liked it. So yep, that's all the Catherine Andersons of this series. It's She has an interesting way of writing, and she like all of her books are very easy reads. They're very compelling. They're really interesting. She does a really good look into multiple perspectives and doing full character studies and full look into how people think and react and fall in love, which I love. I mean, and I like the fact that she chooses subject matters that are a little more challenging. It's not just, oh hey, I'm a single hot sexy woman and I just met this cowboy but I'm from the city and he's from the country. It's like, no, I'm a real person who got in an accident and now have a hard time, thinking clearly. And I can't hold, it's she deals with her characters feel real because they are treated with respect. They're shown in a real light. She takes on these subjects and shows them in a very real way. And it's sad to say that like the first one that she really attempted that with, which is, Phantom Waltz, is the weakest. And it's not weak because she's in a wheelchair. It's weak because that's all that was going on. And again, she figured that out, and that's why every other book has another element to it. It's either there's a little bit of a who's trying to hurt us, or we're fixing this horse while we're fixing myself, and how are we going to raise a baby while I'm blind? It's got a lot of stuff to it. I would definitely say, like, I would save Phantom Waltz for later if you decide to read this. I would definitely recommend starting. I would say start with Sweet Nothings and go from there. But I would even say if you want, you can always start with start with Blue Skies and go from there. Because even though I read it completely out of order, because I read My Sunshine first, and then I went and read the historical ones, and then I'm reading in order since then. Like, there's nothing in My Sunshine other than the fact that you meet this family that all has couples and children. You're not going to lose anything if you pick and choose any of the series. Like, there's some stuff in all these books that is very good. Like, the lowest one of hers that I have is Phantom Waltz, and I still give that a 3 out of 5. So, overall, I give this entire series a 4.5 out of 5. It's very strong. There's not a single one of these that's a complete dud. It's just Phantom Waltz. I know she can write better than that, so that's why Phantom Waltz is a little weak for me. But highly recommend the series. I would definitely, if nothing else, please read Blue Skies or My Sunshine. Absolutely, beautiful stories. Just loved every moment of them. Happy reading, y'all.